All right, Major Garrett is standing by with Dr. Ben Carson. Go ahead, Major.
Dr. Carson, your impressions on the debate this evening. Did you get enough time to satisfy you, and where do you think your campaign stands after the debate?
No, I think there was no attempt whatsoever to be equitable with the time or with the questions. I was quite disappointed with that. I think this was the worst of all the debates in that respect. It was a good debate if you like the Roman Colosseum and yeah, hit him again, you know, kind of thing. But in terms of getting policy out and talking about things that are important, forget about it.
There seemed to be an effort tonight to tell Republican voters there's something fundamentally wrong with Donald Trump on a lot of different levels in ways that didn't show up in previous debates. How did you view that, and how do you think most Republican voters are going to view that?
Well, I think people already know what his faults are, and they've decided that they would overlook those things because they're frightened, and they feel that, you know, he speaks to their fear. So, you know, I don't know that you can bring anything out about him that's going to change people's minds.
And that perspective, do you think informs you that this race is not technically over, but nearly over? If people have overlooked all those things and he has the lead he has?
Potentially. I think we'll find out a lot on Super Tuesday.
What are your expectations for you on Super Tuesday?
Well, you know, I hope that a lot of people in a lot of different states are paying attention and saying, what kind of leadership do we want? Do we want people who are loud, people who are bombastic, people who are always fighting each other and not really dealing with the issues, people who talk a lot but really haven't accomplished a lot? Or do you want somebody who isn't going to get, you know, into a big fight with people he should not be fighting with? I'm happy to fight with Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton. But, you know, if the Republicans are destroying themselves, all they're doing is making it easy for the Democrats in November. Why can't people understand that?
Do you think that's partly what was your grievance with tonight, that this was more about destroying everyone else on the stage who has a Republican next to their name?
As I mentioned in my opening statement, you know, why do you want to get sucked into that? Why not actually discuss the issues? You know, that's not doing any good. It's not solving any problems. Not a single problem was solved by attacking each other.
Is there anything, Dr. Carson, in terms of results on Super Tuesday, that could drive you out of this race, that you would look at it and say, realistically, I've had now 16 contests, it's not working, it's not there, and perhaps it's time for me to bow out?
There's no question that I'll be looking very carefully at the results and making an assessment.
Is there any threshold you have in your mind that you could share with us about, or the people who are maybe on the fence about you?
I don't have a threshold. I'm just going to say I will be looking very carefully at those results, and they will inform me quite a bit.
Let me put it to you this way. Would South Carolina and Nevada be good enough results that are approximately the same as those two states for you to carry on after Super Tuesday?
I don't want to say.
Okay.
Because I don't know. You know, it's too hard to know at this stage of the game exactly how you're going to react. But I will be paying very close attention to the general trend.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Carson.
Okay.
Great to see you. Safe travels, as always. Well, you heard it there, Elaine. Any questions?
Well, you know, it's interesting. You tried to get the threshold answer out of him, and it was interesting to note, even from the outset, right? I wrote down what he said in his opening statement, and it was, it's not about us, it's about the American people. And without obviously naming his opponents by name, it was very clear he's trying to appeal to sort of people's better angels.
True, and the threshold question, you could tell, I think for the first time, Dr. Carson is now really wrestling with in a painful way. And I think he knows the answer. If his results after Super Tuesday across all 12 states, 11, Wyoming has a convention process that will draw it a little bit more extensively. But if they're the same as South Carolina and Nevada, he pretty much gave us the idea that that's not enough for him to carry on, and he's going to seriously look at shutting all this down. He didn't say it, but you could get in his body language and the difficulty with which he was expressing himself about the things that he'll have to look at very closely, to use his words. He's weighing his future in this campaign more carefully than ever before. I think that's obvious. The other thing that I was struck by, Elaine, is he said, you know, most people know everything there is to know about Donald Trump. I don't think Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz believe that. I think tonight there was a concerted effort by both Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio to suggest there are things about Donald Trump's past, either his employment of people who are foreign workers, Trump University and the litigation, 4 bankruptcies, his support for various people in Democratic politics over many, many, many years, his inability to articulate a sizable amount of detail about the substance of his grandiose promises. I think in all of those respects, Cruz and Rubio tried to inject tonight a heightened level, a new level of doubt about Trump. Whether they'll be successful or not, to Steve Shigaris' point, we don't know. But clearly, there was an intent tonight by both Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz to say, alarm bells should be ringing in your ears, Republicans and conservatives, if you think this guy is a reliable conservative or you think this guy can do all the things that he says he has promised to do. And they injected that more intensely than ever before, and they hope, I believe, they have to hope, that it will take some of the momentum away from Trump before next Tuesday.
Major, I recall that earlier in the night you said, in describing Dr. Ben Carson, that he has sort of this low-level fidelity, that in fact when you look at the Republican primary voters, there is actually a substantial reservoir of goodwill towards him, and particularly among evangelicals. And Major, I'm wondering if Dr. Carson does decide after Super Tuesday to go ahead and suspend his campaign, where might his supporters go?
That's an interesting question. I don't have a very good answer for you yet. Based on the South Carolina experience, I'm not exactly sure that they would go to Ted Cruz. That would be likely a natural constituency to move from Ben Carson and his social conservative pitch and his roots in the evangelical Christian community over to Ted Cruz. But the bad blood from Iowa remains, and it was a factor in South Carolina. It may be a factor over time. Now, these things, the intensity about them can diminish over time, but my guess is Ben Carson supporters might just sit out for a while and take things in. And to be honest, after March 1st, there will not be states where that voting constituency is concentrated enough to be what you would call an important swing part of the next states after March 1st. So Carson's going to remain in through there for sure. So this may be an interesting question, but it may largely be academic in the sense of all the available Republican primary voters after March 1st. But my hunch, it's entirely that, Elaine, would be that the Ben Carson supporters would sit still for a while, take a long, hard look at this race, and then make a determination, which could be Trump or Rubio, or maybe Kasich, or they may sit it out entirely. That is not outside the realm of possibility.